Welcome to Silent Betrayals. Please like this video and subscribe to Relation Tales. Let's begin. Liam never imagined that his marriage would reach a point where doubt became his constant companion. When he first met Sophia, it felt as though the universe had conspired to bring them together. Their connection seemed effortless, magnetic, and genuine. However, 3 years into their relationship, Liam found himself questioning everything he thought he knew. It all began with the late nights. Sophia had always been ambitious, but her work seemed to consume more of her life than ever before. At first, Liam brushed it off. She was dedicated to her career, after all. Yet, as weeks turned into months, her absences felt heavier. Her smile became strained, her laughter rare, and their once lively conversations dwindled into awkward silences. Liam, a freelance illustrator who worked from home most days, cherished the flexibility to pursue his creative projects at his own pace. But Sophia's success in the corporate world seemed to create a growing distance between them. He tried his best to support her and understand her long hours and frequent business dinners. Deep down, though, he couldn't ignore the feeling that something was slipping away. One evening, as Liam sat at his desk sketching concepts for a new project, Sophia called to say she'd be late again. He glanced at the clock. It was already past 9. Her voice on the phone sounded rushed and dismissive as she explained she had another team-building event to attend. "Don't wait up," she said before hanging up. Liam stared at the phone, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. He tried to tell himself that this was normal for someone climbing the corporate ladder, but the nagging doubt in his mind wouldn't go away. He decided to stay awake anyway, watching mindless TV as the hours passed. Sophia didn't come home until after midnight. Her hair was slightly tousled, and the faint scent of perfume lingered in the air. When Liam asked how the event went, her response was vague. "It was fine, just the usual," she said, brushing past him and heading to the bedroom. There was no warmth, no detail, just a curt dismissal. As the weeks went by, the distance between them became even more noticeable. Arguments flared over trivial things, forgotten errands, missed calls, and who left the dishes in the sink. Sophia seemed to see Liam's presence as a nuisance rather than a source of comfort. Her once playful teasing had turned into cutting remarks about his work-from-home lifestyle. "It must be nice," she'd say sarcastically. One morning, as Sophia sipped her coffee, she quipped, "You get to sit around in your pajamas all day while I actually contribute something." The words stung, but Liam chose to let them slide. He told himself it was just the stress talking. Every marriage had rough patches, right? This was just one of them, or so he hoped. But then there was the lingerie. One Saturday morning, Sophia left her car keys on the counter and asked Liam to get her car washed while she ran errands. Glad for a distraction, he agreed. As he cleaned out the back seat, something unusual caught his eye, a crumpled piece of lace peeking out from under the passenger seat. Curious, he reached for it and froze. It was lingerie, hers unmistakably, but the way it was shoved carelessly under the seat didn't sit right with him. Sophia was meticulous by nature, the kind of person who color-coded her closet and alphabetized her pantry. Leaving something like this lying around seemed completely out of character. Then, a memory surfaced unbidden. A comment Sophia had made years ago, joking about how messy things could get in the heat of the moment. Liam's stomach churned as realization began to dawn. His hands trembled as he placed the lingerie back where he found it, trying to steady his thoughts. That evening, when Sophia breezed through the door with her usual rushed excuses, Liam didn't confront her. He couldn't confront her, not yet. Instead, he spent the night replaying every suspicious moment in his mind. The late nights, the growing distance, the unexplained irritability. Something didn't add up. Liam's suspicions began to consume him, filling his thoughts during the day and keeping him awake at night. By the next morning, he had devised a plan. He retrieved an old smartphone he barely used and installed a tracking app on it. Later that evening, when Sophia wasn't paying attention, he slipped the phone into her car, carefully tucking it under the passenger seat. It was a desperate move, one that made his stomach churn with guilt. But he needed answers. He needed to know the truth. For the first few days, the app revealed nothing unusual. Her routine appeared normal, commuting to work, stopping at the gym, and running errands. But on Thursday evening, everything changed. The tracker showed her location at a downtown bar. At first, Liam thought nothing of it. Her work outings often took her to such places. But then her location shifted to a hotel. Liam's heart raced as he stared at the screen, his hands damp with a mix of anticipation and dread. Without giving himself time to reconsider, he grabbed his keys and drove straight to the hotel. Liam parked across the street, his chest tight as he watched the hotel entrance. Sitting in his car, the engine still running, he gripped the steering wheel so tightly that his knuckles turned white. The tracker app on his phone showed Sophia's location still inside the hotel, but he couldn't bring himself to move. A part of him desperately hoped this was all a misunderstanding, that there was some logical explanation. But the pieces didn't fit. Her growing distance, the misplaced lingerie, the late nights. With a deep breath, Liam turned off the engine and leaned back in his seat. The silence in the car felt heavy, almost suffocating. Just as he began to second-guess his decision to come, the hotel's glass doors slid open. His breath hitched. There she was, Sophia, walking hand in hand with a man Liam had never seen before. The stranger was tall, impeccably dressed, and exuded a calm confidence that made Liam's stomach churn. Sophia's face glowed with a brightness Liam hadn't seen in months as she laughed at something the man said, her hand resting casually on his arm. Then, without hesitation, the man leaned in and kissed her. Liam's world crumbled. A wave of anger hit him, sharp and searing, yet it froze him in place. He wanted to storm out of the car, march across the street, and demand answers. He wanted to shout, to make a scene, to release the storm of emotions boiling inside him. But instead, he sat there, paralyzed by the weight of what he had just witnessed. Sophia and the man disappeared back into the hotel, leaving Liam alone with his thoughts. He stared at the entrance, his mind racing through 1,000 scenarios. Should he follow them, confront her, or simply drive away and pretend none of this had happened? His phone buzzed, snapping him out of his daze. It was a text from Sophia. Running late tonight. Don't wait up. The audacity of her lie made his blood boil. Liam tossed his phone onto the passenger seat and started the car, driving aimlessly through the city. Eventually, he ended up at a quiet bar on the outskirts of town, a place where he wouldn't risk running into anyone he knew. Sitting at the bar, he nursed his drink, his mind replaying the events of the evening on an endless loop. He was so lost in thought that he didn't notice the man who slid onto the stool next to him until a voice broke through his haze. "You look like you've been through hell," the stranger said. Liam glanced up and was surprised to see a familiar face, Ethan, an old friend from college. They hadn't seen each other in years, but Ethan's easygoing demeanor hadn't changed. For the first time all evening, Liam felt a flicker of relief. "Yeah, something like that," he replied, his voice heavy. Ethan ordered a drink and turned back to Liam. "Want to talk about it?" Liam hesitated for a moment, but then found himself spilling everything. The late nights, the tracking app, the hotel, and the kiss. Ethan listened without interrupting, his expression growing darker with each detail. "Man, that's rough," Ethan said when Liam finished. "But listen, you don't have to deal with this alone. If you need a place to crash, my door's open. Better than staying in that apartment with her." The offer caught Liam off guard. "You sure?" "Of course," Ethan said. "That's what friends are for." The next day, while Sophia was at work, Liam packed a bag. He couldn't bear the thought of staying in their apartment another night, surrounded by painful reminders of the life they had built together, a life she had so easily discarded. He left a brief note on the kitchen counter. "Staying with a friend. Don't wait up." When Sophia called him that evening, her tone was sharp. "Where are you?" "At Ethan's," Liam replied calmly. "What? Why?" she demanded. I needed some space, he said, keeping his voice even. Space from what? She snapped. Liam clenched his jaw, debating whether to confront her now or wait. I'll explain when I'm ready, he said finally. This is ridiculous, she huffed. You're acting like a child. Just come home so we can talk. I can't do that right now, Liam said firmly, cutting her off before she could argue further. Liam hung up the phone and let out a heavy sigh. Ethan's house became a sanctuary for him. It was small but cozy, with a guest room overlooking a backyard filled with wildflowers. Ethan made it his mission to keep the mood light, cracking jokes and offering advice when Liam needed it. You're better off without her, man, Ethan said one evening as they sat on the porch. You deserve someone who actually respects you. Liam nodded, though deep down, he wasn't sure he believed it yet. The image of Sophia with the man at the hotel still haunted him, a constant reminder of her betrayal. Over the next few days, Sophia's calls and messages became relentless. At first, they were demanding, come home so we can talk. Then they turned desperate. I'm sorry. Please, let's fix this. Liam ignored them all. He needed time. Time to think, to process what had happened, and to figure out his next steps. As the days stretched into a week, Sophia's messages became increasingly erratic. At first, she pleaded, Liam, I know I made a mistake, but we can fix this. Please call me. Then they turned into guilt-tripping accusations. I can't believe you're doing this to us. You're just running away instead of facing our problems. Liam read each message with a growing sense of detachment. Every word felt like a desperate attempt to rewrite the narrative, to shift the blame onto him. But the truth was clear. Sophia had betrayed him. There was no misunderstanding, no room for doubt. The image of her with the man at the hotel was seared into his memory. Still, a part of him craved closure. He needed to hear her admit what she had done, to own up to the damage she had caused. One evening, after yet another barrage of messages, Liam finally decided to call her. Sophia answered almost immediately, her voice shaky. Liam, I've been trying to reach you. Can we please talk? Sure, Liam said, his tone flat. Let's talk. Start by telling me the truth. There was a pause, a silence so long it became an answer in itself. Finally, Sophia spoke, her voice trembling. I don't know what you mean. Don't lie to me. Liam snapped, his patience snapping like a taut wire. I know about the hotel. I saw you, Sophia. I saw you with him. Sophia's gasp on the other end of the line was audible. You followed me, she stammered. That's what you're focused on. Liam shot back incredulously. I caught you cheating, and you're upset that I found out. It's not what you think, Sophia said quickly, her voice breaking. It was a mistake. It didn't mean anything. Didn't mean anything? Liam repeated, his anger rising. You destroyed our marriage for something that didn't mean anything. There was another pause before Sophia's voice softened, turning pleading. Liam, I know I messed up. I was confused, and work has been so stressful. I wasn't thinking clearly, but I love you. I really do. Can't we just move past this? No, we can't, Liam said firmly. You didn't just make a mistake, Sophia. You made a choice over and over again. And now we're done. After hanging up, Liam felt a strange mixture of relief and sadness. He had gotten the admission he needed, but it didn't make the betrayal hurt any less. For years, he had built his life around Sophia, trusting her completely. Now that foundation was gone, and all that remained was a hollow ache where his marriage used to be. With the decision made, Liam turned his focus to the future. He began researching cities where he could start over, far away from the memories of his life with Sophia. Ethan encouraged him every step of the way, even helping him look for apartments. You deserve a clean slate, Ethan said one evening as they pored over listings. Someplace where you can rebuild without all this baggage. Liam nodded, the idea of a fresh start growing more appealing with each passing day. He found a small, affordable apartment in a quiet city known for its thriving creative community. It wasn't much, but it felt like the right place to begin again. Before leaving, Liam tied up loose ends. He packed his things from the apartment he had shared with Sophia, careful to avoid any interactions with her. He left behind his wedding ring and a signed set of divorce papers on the kitchen counter, along with a simple note. "This is what you chose. I'm moving on." The weight of the past 3 years seemed to lift as he drove away, the city shrinking in his rearview mirror. For the first time in a long time, Liam felt a flicker of hope. The new city was everything Liam had hoped for. His apartment was small but cozy, with just enough space to set up a makeshift studio for his design work. The neighborhood buzzed with creativity, from art galleries on every corner to cafes filled with writers and photographers. It was a place that thrived on possibility. Liam quickly found his footing, joining local meetups for freelancers and creatives. One evening, at a casual networking event, he met Sarah, a photographer with a sharp sense of humor and a knack for finding beauty in the ordinary. Their connection was instant, but Liam tread carefully, wary of diving into something new too soon. Over time, their friendship grew into something deeper. Sarah's kindness and sincerity were a balm for Liam's bruised heart, and her passion for her work reignited his own creative spark. Together, they explored the city, shared late-night conversations over coffee, and slowly began building a future that felt bright and unburdened. 1 year after leaving Sophia, Liam found himself reflecting on how far he had come. He had come a long way. His freelance career was thriving, his new city felt like home, and his relationship with Sarah had brought him a sense of joy he hadn't thought possible. The scars of betrayal were still there, but they no longer defined him. One evening, as he and Sarah sat on their balcony watching the sunset, Liam received an email from his lawyer. Divorce finalized. "Congratulations on your fresh start." Liam smiled, the words feeling like the final chapter of a book he was ready to close. He turned to Sarah, who was sketching something in her notebook. "What's that?" he asked, nodding toward her drawing. "It's an idea for our next project," she said with a grin. "You up for it?" Liam leaned back, his heart lighter than it had been in years. Always, life in the new city was a study in contrast to the chaos he had left behind. The streets were quieter, the people kinder, and his days felt lighter and more purposeful. Sarah had become his anchor, grounding him in the present while encouraging him to dream about the future. They collaborated often, blending Liam's design work with Sarah's photography. Their projects gained traction in the local art scene, with their work being featured at a gallery downtown. The buzz around their collaboration was energizing. But what mattered most to Liam was the joy of building something meaningful with someone who valued and respected him. One afternoon, as Liam sat at his desk sketching ideas for a new project, there was a knock at the door. Sarah was out running errands, so Liam got up to answer it, expecting a delivery or a neighbor. Instead, he found Sophia standing there, his breath caught in his chest. She looked different, thinner, her makeup more pronounced, and her expression a mix of desperation and determination. "Sophia," he said flatly, gripping the edge of the door. "What are you doing here?" "I had to see you," she said quickly, her voice shaky. "I've been thinking about us, about everything. I made a mistake, Liam. I want to fix this." Liam stared at her, a flood of emotions rising in his chest. Anger, pity, disbelief. "You want to fix this?" he repeated, his tone sharp. "After everything you did? After the lies, the betrayal?" Sophia's eyes filled with tears, but he didn't flinch. "I know I screwed up," she said, her voice cracking. "But I love you, Liam. I never stopped loving you." He let out a bitter laugh, shaking his head. "You have a funny way of showing it." She reached for his arm, but he stepped back, keeping the door between them. "Liam, please," she begged. "We were good together. We can be good again." "No, Sophia," he said firmly. "We can't. You destroyed what we had, and I've moved on. You should, too." Her eyes darted past him, landing on a photo of him and Sarah on the wall. Her expression shifted, a flash of anger breaking through her tears. "So, this is why you won't give me another chance," she snapped. "You replaced me with her." Liam's jaw tightened. "You replaced yourself, Sophia, the moment you chose to betray me." Sophia's visit shook Liam more than he wanted to admit. After she left, he stood in the middle of his apartment, trying to steady his thoughts. The anger he felt toward her was still there, but it was no longer consuming. Instead, it felt like a weight he had finally learned to carry. When Sarah returned later that evening, she immediately noticed something was off. "What's wrong?" she asked, setting down her bags. "Sophia was here," he said, his voice calm but tired. Sarah raised an eyebrow, concern flickering across her face. "What did she want?" "To fix things," Liam replied with a bitter smile. "As if that's even possible." Sarah crossed the room and wrapped her arms around him. "You don't owe her anything," she said softly. "Not your time, not your energy, not your peace." "I know," Liam said, resting his head against hers. "And I didn't give her any of it." The days that followed Sophia's visit solidified Liam's resolve to keep moving forward. He and Sarah began planning their next big project, a joint exhibit featuring their combined work. The gallery owner was excited, offering them the largest space in the venue and promising a feature article in the local arts magazine. As they worked side by side, Liam felt something he hadn't felt in years: joy. His days were no longer about surviving. They were about thriving, creating and building a life that felt truly his own. 2 years later, Liam and Sarah stood in their gallery space, surrounded by friends, colleagues, and art enthusiasts. The exhibit had been a resounding success, with pieces selling faster than they could have imagined. As the evening wound down, Liam took Sarah's hand and led her to a quiet corner of the room. "I couldn't have done any of this without you," he said, his voice filled with gratitude. Sarah smiled, her eyes shining. "You could have, but I'm glad you didn't have to." They raised their glasses in a toast, celebrating not just the success of their work, but the life they had built together. For Liam, the past was no longer a burden. It was a stepping stone to something far greater. As they left the gallery that night, hand in hand, Liam looked up at the stars and smiled. The road had been long and painful, but it had led him here, and for the first time in a long time, he was exactly where he wanted to be. You're in a deeply complex situation, and it's clear you're grappling with intense emotions, confusion, and guilt. The shift you've noticed in your marriage, coupled with the attention you've received from someone else, is creating a tug-of-war between desires and values. It's understandable that you're feeling conflicted, and it's important to approach the situation thoughtfully to regain clarity and refocus on what truly matters to you. Here are some steps that might help. Reflect on your marriage. It sounds like your marriage has undergone a shift over time, and you're noticing a growing void, particularly regarding intimacy. This might be an opportunity to explore the deeper needs both you and your husband have. Communication is key. Have you spoken with your husband about your concerns and desires? It's possible that he may be experiencing similar feelings, and talking openly could help both of you understand where things stand emotionally and physically. This could be a chance to reconnect or identify what needs to change. Examine the emotional fulfillment. The attention you receive from the man at work has likely filled an emotional need that's been missing in your marriage. While it's natural to appreciate this, it's also important to recognize the potential consequences of this connection. What is it that you're truly seeking through this attention? Are you seeking validation, excitement, or a sense of closeness that you're not currently feeling at home? Acknowledging this can help you better understand what needs to change within your marriage, rather than relying on external validation. Clarify boundaries. It's clear that the line has been crossed, and though nothing physically significant happened, there were moments of physical closeness that you regret. Reflecting on why this happened, perhaps as a response to the lack of intimacy or connection at home, can give you insight into how to move forward. Setting clear boundaries at work with this man is essential. Distancing yourself from the situation is crucial for both your emotional well-being and the integrity of your marriage. You've already acknowledged that it was wrong, And taking proactive steps to prevent any further escalation will help you regain a sense of control. Address the guilt and confusion. Guilt is a strong emotion, but it's also an indicator that your actions don't align with your values. Recognizing this is the first step to realigning your choices with your deeper priorities. The fact that you're conflicted shows that you care deeply about your marriage and the life you've built with your husband. Focus on forgiving yourself, acknowledging the mistake, and then using this experience as a way to reconnect with your values. This might involve shifting your energy back into your marriage or seeking professional guidance. Consider seeking therapy or counseling. This is a pivotal moment in your life, and speaking with a therapist could provide valuable insight into the deeper emotions you're facing. Therapy could help you work through the changes in your marriage, explore what intimacy means to you, and guide you through the guilt and confusion you're feeling. It could also be helpful to involve your husband in counseling, especially if he is also feeling disconnected. Refocus on what matters. Ultimately, you'll want to refocus on what truly matters to you: your marriage, your well-being, and the future you want to build. Take time to reconnect with your husband and rebuild your emotional intimacy. Focus on rediscovering your connection with him, and if possible, explore ways to rekindle the physical intimacy that has faded over time. This might require patience, effort, and understanding from both sides, but it could also be the way to heal and move forward in a way that feels right for both of you. You're at a crossroads, and the choices you make now will shape the direction of your life and your marriage. Trust yourself to make decisions that reflect your core values and desires for the future. Whether it's working on your marriage, refocusing on your emotional needs, or seeking support, you have the power to realign your life with what truly matters.